Hey guys, it's Ty and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be doing another recent reads, and I have 9 books to talk about, and all 9 of those are new releases for 2025. Now a couple of those I did have to unfortunately DNF. There were some huge disappointments in there, and then the rest of them were just fine. So we're going to start with the books that I unfortunately had to DNF. So the first book that I DNF'd is Listen to Your Sister by Nina Vielle. This is a adult horror with some mystery elements in there as well. And in this, we're following older sister Calla. She is now the primary caregiver for her younger brother Jamie, but she also gets help from their other brother Dre. So Jamie is a bit of a troublemaker. He's like running with the wrong crowd. He gets in trouble a lot at school, and Calla is just trying to figure out how she is going to manage taking care of him while also kind of, living her life. So there's a point in the story where Jamie with his friends, they go to this protest, and they're causing a little bit of trouble at this protest, but things go left. And then the story kind of like takes off from there. I literally stopped reading this like right after the events of that protest. I stopped on chapter 8, which is page 72. So I didn't really get far into this. The only thing that I can say is that for whatever reason, I just was not able to get into the story. I did try to listen to this on audio, and once I started it, anytime I would stop listening to it, I would never really want to pick it up. I never really got engaged with it. The only POV that I liked, because we get POVs from all 3 of the characters, the only one that I was slightly interested in was Calla's, but I feel like at a certain point hers are really short, and it was kind of like focusing more on Jamie and Dre's. I did receive this book from the publisher. It wasn't anything that was like on my radar, so I didn't have any expectations going into this, but unfortunately I just did not like it. The other book that I unfortunately DNF'd, it's called Creep, a Love Story by Emma Van Straten. This is a adult psychological suspense story, and we follow Alice. And Alice is a cleaning woman for this man, Tom. She only cleans once a week. They have never met each other, so they only correspond with each other through email. And so as she has been cleaning for Tom, she has become obsessed with him. She's always going through his stuff, going through his emails, going through like his social media accounts and like deleting messages and comments and whatnot. She has learned his schedule, so she's low-key like stalking the man. And so we're just following Alice and her obsession with Tom. I stopped reading this at about 30% of the way through. I just got bored. I got bored being in Alice's head and just her talking about how obsessed she is with Tom and all the stuff she would do if she ever actually got to meet him. And I just wanted kind of more to happen. I'm sure more did happen, later on in the book, but for me, it was moving a little too slowly, so I put it down. So the next 2 books I want to talk about are arcs that I received through NetGalley. The first one is Parents Weekend by Alex Finlay. This is a adult mystery thriller, and I was really excited to get this because I have been wanting to check out something from this author. I know a couple of times people have recommended different books of theirs, so I was looking forward to this one. So in Parents Weekend, we are following a lot of people. So it starts off with us following these students, and there's 5 students. They're at college in California. I think it's like a private school, and it's Parents Weekend. So all of their parents are like slowly coming in for the weekend. There's supposed to be like some activities, a big dinner, the whole shebang. The first night that all of these parents are there, the children, all 5 of them, they never show up to like the main dinner. Something happens and they all go MIA. So then we start to follow POVs from each of the parents, and they're all trying to figure out what happened to their child. But we also start getting some secrets from these parents, and you start to kind of wonder if things that are going on in these parents' lives, do they have any effect on why these children went missing? And we're following this detective who was brought in from the FBI to find these missing students. I enjoyed this for the most part. I ended up giving this 3 stars. In the beginning, there were so many characters because you're following the students and then you're following the parents. Some of them are single parents, some of them are mother, father. So there's a lot of people to follow. There's a lot to get used to. But once I kind of got used to following all these people, I really got into the story. I actually like that we got a POV from the detective. I am personally a fan of getting mysteries through the detective's POV, so I enjoyed that. I enjoyed learning about these parents and the messy stuff that was going on in their personal lives. The only thing that prevented me from rating this a little bit higher was the ending. I feel like there was this huge buildup to the end, and once you figure out what's going on, and then we rushed right through it. And it also did that thing where it was like one character said something, and then all of a sudden another character was able to then put all these pieces together, and that just really didn't make sense to me. I wish the ending could have been a few pages longer. I wish we could have like sat with that a little bit more, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to picking up something else from this author. The other arc that I read from NetGalley is Hard Town by Adam Plantinga. This is a adult thriller, and so this is the second book in a series. I don't remember what the series is, but the first book was The Ascent, and I read that last year, loved it. It was in my top books of 2024, and so I was super excited to get the second book. So in Hard Town, we're following ex-detective Argento, and we're following him after the events of what happened in The Ascent. And so he is like house sitting for this man out in Arizona, who I think is his friend. So he's house sitting for a friend. He gets randomly approached by this woman, and she is telling him that she knows who he is, like she knows he's an ex-cop, and her husband is missing. And she thinks that something strange is going on in this town called Fenton, Arizona. And so Argento kind of just like brushes her off, and he says, you know, I'm retired. I'm not trying to do any more investigative work. But something about the distress that she was in and her condition that she was in when she came to him, it started bothering him. So he went to Fenton, and he decided that he was going to try to help this lady out. But come to find out, he does not know where this lady went. She is now missing as well. And then he also notices that something strange is happening in Fenton, and he decides that he is going to try to figure it out. Now, I did enjoy this one. I gave this one 4 stars, mainly because I love the character of Argento. He is like this stand-up ex-cop. He always tries to do like the right thing with the right intentions, but he's put in these situations where he has to do stuff that's not good, but he's doing it for a good reason. I like following him throughout this town and how we're slowly starting to try to get pieces of what's going on. I liked some of the action scenes that we got. It's definitely not as much as it was in The Ascent, but we do get enough in my opinion. But I will say what kept this from being like a 5-star read for me like it was in that first book is that the ending and what was actually going on in the town was so underwhelming. With as much stuff as this character went through throughout this entire book, I was just expecting a lot more than what we got. So I do not think that you necessarily have to read the first book in the series. If maybe The Ascent didn't sound good to you, but you want to check out this one, I think you can, because the author did a really good job with recapping what happened in that first book, so you can kind of, you know, put the pieces together and figure it out. But if you want to know exactly what happened, I would suggest, you know, you start with book 1. But overall, I enjoyed this. I just wish there was a better ending. So now we're going to get into some books that I found to be a bit disappointing. So the first one is a adult romance. It is The Love Simulation by Etta Easton. This is also a book that was not on my radar, but I only read it because I was invited to the book club meeting for this book. So in this one, we're following Vice Principal Brianna, and she is really wanting to like get a new library built for her school. She has not been getting along with her principal. It's like everything that she wants to try to do to improve the school, they are shooting her ideas down. Now, she was specifically told that she was going to have the funds to redo their library, but at the last minute, the principal told her that they are using those funds to enhance their football field. So, of course, she's not happy about that. She learns that over the summer, there is going to be this Mars simulation for teachers, and if you make it through the entire, I think it's like 6 weeks during that simulation, then you will be awarded prize money for yourself and for the school. So she decides to join a group of teachers from her school that will be participating. One of those people that are participating is the principal's son, who is also a teacher at the school, Roman. And so she has always been like slightly attracted to him, but she is also one of those people who don't like to blur the lines between personal and professional, so she's never acted on those feelings. So we're following Brianna, these group of teachers, including Roman, that are participating in this Mars simulation. And of course, Roman and Brianna get closer throughout these 6 weeks, and like a romance ensues. I gave this one 2 stars. My biggest problem with this story is that these characters did not feel like adults. I already thought that like this whole Mars simulation that they were going through, it felt like I would expect younger people to do this, not necessarily teachers. And I'm not saying that teachers can't. It's just the way that like it was described. I would expect high school students to go through something like this. The conversations that these characters were having, some of like Brianna's internal dialogue with herself and her like feelings and emotions, it all felt like I was reading it from a younger person's perspective. They said that she was almost 30 years old, and I swear she read like she was 20. Throughout the whole story, she was really big on not, crossing the line with like the teachers. It was almost to the point to where it was annoying. Like, I can understand that you don't want to cross any boundaries, especially like if you're the vice principal, but it was like simple stuff, like them just inviting her out for like ice cream or something after school, and then she would have this long talk with herself about how she shouldn't do it because she didn't want to like mess up the professional relationship. And I'm just like, it's really not that deep. And then she had all of this conflict within herself about, she's 30. She doesn't know if she's done enough in her life. And she actually has done a lot. I mean, if you think about it, being a vice principal at 30 is pretty good. But she thinks that her parents and her siblings look down on her. But throughout the whole story, nobody has said anything about her career. Nobody has said that they don't like what she does. And so she was just very insecure. And at a certain point, that became annoying as well. And then the relationship between her and Roman, it just felt very immature, childlike. Some of their conversations and some of like the little comments they would make to themselves, I don't know. I didn't really vibe with this. Now, if I was reading this and I knew that this was like young adult, I would have probably loved this because I feel like it would have fit better with that. But because you're trying to tell me that these characters are in their 30s, no. I did not believe it. I also just wasn't a fan of the ending. I don't know what it is with these books that I've read, but the endings have really been killing it for me. But yeah, I just didn't vibe with this. I gave it 2 stars. Now, I do know that there is a book before this one, The Kiss Countdown, that follows Brianna's older brother. But honestly, because I didn't like this one so much, I do not really care to read that book. So yeah, didn't like this one. So then another book that I read that was a huge disappointment for me, I have a dedicated review for it, but that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This is a adult romance, and this was one of my most anticipated books of the year. So far, the 3 books that I have read from Abby Jimenez, I have really enjoyed. 2 of them I gave 5 stars. 1 of them I gave 4 stars. So I didn't expect anything less from this one, and I hated it. I rated this 2 stars. I think that was generous because the more I think about this, the more I dislike it. But in this, we're following Samantha and Xavier, I think. Is it Xavier? Yes, Xavier. And Xavier is a veterinarian. And the first time that they meet, Sam goes to him because she has a cat that doesn't have a butthole. I found that to be hilarious. But anyways, she goes to him to try to fix the cat. They have a very unpleasant first encounter because he was rude as hell to her. And that rubbed her the wrong way. Of course, he felt bad about it later. Some time has passed. She comes back. They end up agreeing to go on a date. Their first date went really well. They both enjoyed it. It ended up being an extremely long date because some things happened. And then right after the date, Xavier learns that Samantha is going to be moving from Minnesota back to California to help her mom, who has been dealing with severe dementia. So this kind of turns into a long distance relationship. And so the book is just following Samantha and Xavier as they're trying to figure out this relationship that they really want to have, but also deal with some personal stuff that's going on in both of their lives. So not only is Samantha dealing with her mother who has severe dementia, but Xavier is dealing with some trauma that he has stemming from his past with his abusive parents. In the past, I have felt like Abby Jimenez has done a really good job with having a good balance between the romance and characters' personal issues. I actually like that she includes characters and issues that they have outside of each other, because I feel like that just adds to a more interesting, relatable story. In this one, there wasn't really a good balance. I wanted more romance. All we saw was maybe some cute moments between Xavier and Samantha here or there. But for the most part, their relationship was them trying to figure out how they were going to do a long distance relationship. This focused heavily on Samantha and her dealing with her mother's severe dementia, which is a real thing. And I didn't mind it. I found it interesting. I can't relate to that, but I found it interesting to see Samantha and her family dealing with that. But I just didn't want that to be the majority of the story. Here and there, we got some scenes with Xavier, dealing with his trauma with his parents, and how he's trying to make sure that he's making a good life for himself to, show his parents like, hey, I didn't need you guys, that type of thing. But like I said, a majority of this, I just wanted a better balance between that and the relationship. And so this was just a huge disappointment. If you want my more in-depth thoughts about this, I will have that review linked down below. Another big disappointment for me that I listened to on audiobook is Emily Henry's new book, Great Big Beautiful Life. And this is a adult romance, I thought, but this read more like a adult contemporary fiction with some romance sprinkled in. So Emily Henry has been a bit of a hit or miss for me. There's only one book of hers that I really enjoyed, which seems to be the least popular of her books, and that was The People We Meet on Vacation. I enjoyed that. It doesn't look like a lot of other people did. And then I really didn't like Beach Read, but everything else I thought was fine. So I didn't necessarily have the biggest expectation for this story, but I did think that I was going to like it more than I did. I gave this book 1 star. So in this one, we're following these 2 authors, Alice and Hayden. And so they both want to write the biography for Margaret, who is this reclusive heiress who has disappeared from the public. And so they both kind of get summoned to her, and she tells them that she's going to give them a month, and she's going to interview with them separately over the course of the month. And whoever can write up the best story based off of the information she provides during that month, she will then choose who she wants to actually write her story. During that time, we are getting bits of what Samantha is writing based off of her interview. So it's kind of a book within a book. And then we also see Hayden and Alice get closer over the course of a month. I wish that I had something nice to say, but I don't, because I didn't really care for much in this story, if anything at all. I did not care about Alice and Hayden's relationship. It moved extremely too fast for me. It was definitely insta-lovey. And it was kind of like they were instantly attracted to each other, and then at a certain point, one of the characters was trying to push off the other one. And it was like, but why? Why would you even start anything if you knew that's not what you wanted? Then I did not care about Margaret's story. I thought Margaret's story was pretty boring up until maybe like the 70% mark. And at that time, it started to get good. And there was a point in here where there was like this big reveal. And it was kind of weird because this wasn't the type of story that I thought that I was getting when I was reading this. There's like this big reveal that I think was supposed to be more shocking, but I was not surprised by it at all. It like literally did absolutely nothing for me. And then again, with the ending, I just didn't care for it at all. I didn't care for the ending. So I didn't really like anything about this book. I've seen a lot of people compare this to Evelyn Hugo. Yep, I think that was a fair comparison. I do think this definitely read like Evelyn Hugo, but I felt like Evelyn Hugo did it better because this story was more entertaining. Margaret's story just was not entertaining for me. I think doing like a book within a book is so hard because both of those stories have to be entertaining and both of them weren't. This one was a huge disappointment for me, and I'm happy that I did not go out and buy this. So I was able to listen to it, but yeah, I was expecting a little bit more from Emily Henry. So I have two more books to talk about, and both of these books I thought were fine. I rated them 3 stars. I don't think they did anything particularly like different from anything that I've read, but I enjoyed them nonetheless. So the first one that I have is Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. This is a adult romance. And in this one, we are following Lenny and Miles. And so Lenny is grieving the death of her really good friend who died of cancer. And so she is trying to just put the pieces of her life back together and figure out how she is going to make it without her best friend. So she does work as a nanny, and the person that she babysits for, she ends up meeting that little girl's uncle, Miles. And so a friendship strikes up between the two, and Miles reveals that not too long ago, he experienced a lot of grief because a few of his family members passed away, around the same time. And so he took it upon himself to be the one to help Lenny deal with the grief that she is experiencing. I thought parts of this was cute. I like that their romance started off as friends. So this is a friends to lovers. It was very cute at times. I like the relationship that Miles was trying to build with his niece, because there is a reason on why he wasn't as close to his sister and his niece like he would like to be, but I like to see how that relationship growed over the course of the story. And then I also like the flashbacks that we got in between a few of the chapters where we see Lenny and her best friend, and you can kind of get a sense of their relationship and how close they were and understand why this affected Lenny so much. So overall, I thought this was fine. It's just not a story that I feel like is going to be memorable, but I am interested to pick up more from the author. And then the last book that I have here is a mystery. It is Cross My Heart by Megan Collins. In this one, we follow this woman, Rosie. She has recently received a heart transplant. So Rosie finds out that her heart came from the wife of this author that she is in love with. And so she reaches out to the author, Morgan, and they start communications back and forth. During those communications, she starts to learn more about Morgan and learn that his wife's death might not have been an accident. I enjoyed this one. Again, it's not one that is super memorable, but I enjoyed the correspondence between Rosie and Morgan. This was definitely twisty at certain points. I did not know where the story was going. I was surprised by a few things that happened, but like I said, definitely not anything that really blew me out of the water, but I was entertained while I was reading this, and this is definitely an author that I want to read from again. So those are all the books that I have to talk about. Please let me know your thoughts down below if you have read any of these. Again, I will have my review for Say You'll Remember Me listed down below in case you guys want my more in-depth thoughts, but I will see you guys next time. Bye.